ease by letting him know that what he's feeling makes sense. Second, try to get comfortable with the idea that he's probably going to continue to be unhappy about the situation, at least until he gets settled in the fall. Rather than working to prevent or chase away his discomfort, focus your attention on helping him find ways to manage the distress he's feeling. For teenagers, powerful emotions are a feature, not a bug. This has always been true, but these days it seems to be less widely understood. The past decade especially has been marked by a dramatic shift in how we talk and think about feelings in general, and, in particular, about the intense emotions that characterize adolescence. To put it bluntly, somewhere along the way we became afraid of being unhappy. When I received my first license to practice clinically as a psychologist nearly 30 years ago, I had been steeped in a training program that embraced the full range of emotion, a spectrum of feelings from the most pleasant to the least, as an expectable and essential aspect of the human experience. My training taught me to regard adolescents' emotional landscapes with an observant, unafraid eye. I have always understood psychotherapy to be a joint enterprise in which I guide the teenagers in my care to share my curiosity about their inner lives. We work from the unspoken assumption that every one of their emotions makes sense, that their difficult feelings, anger, frustration, sadness, worry, and the rest, happen for a reason, even when the reasons for them are unclear. Though of course I'm there to help them feel better, the aim of our work is less about comfort and more about insight. When teenagers understand what they are feeling and why, they suddenly have choices that were not available to them before. To me, this is axiomatic. I have never doubted or questioned the value of welcoming even the most distressing or disturbing emotions into the light of my office. But as I've worked away in my practice, watching the process of young people discovering, understanding, and accepting their emotions and receiving much needed and deserved relief, I have sensed the culture around me changing. 20 years ago, I still felt myself to be part of a broader society that accepted, albeit begrudgingly, that painful feelings are a natural part of life. Today, I'm trying to figure out how uncomfortable feelings came to be seen as psychological states that ought to be prevented or, failing that, banished as quickly as possible. What changed? How did essential aspects of the human condition become unacceptable? How exactly this happened, I can't know for sure, but I have some ideas. Since the time of my training, 3 trends have emerged that may help explain the shift in how we view psychological distress: the proliferation of effective psychiatric medications, the rise of the wellness industry, and the climbing numbers of young people who suffer from mental health disorders. Let's weigh these one by one. Antidepressant medications have been available since the 1950s, but they were not widely prescribed until the late 1980s when Prozac hit the market. Let me say right here that Prozac and the many other psychiatric medications that have been developed in recent years dramatically improve and sometimes save lives. Before physicians began to prescribe Prozac in 1987, they worked with so-called first-generation antidepressant medications. While these drugs were often effective, they caused miserable side effects and could be lethal in overdose, a tragic problem when caring for suicidal patients. Then along came Prozac and, soon after, an entire second generation of medications that lifted depression and had minimal side effects. Suddenly, prescription drugs became a low-risk option for mood improvement. It's no wonder these drugs took off. In 1987, only 37% of those being treated for depression received an antidepressant. By 2015, that number had risen to 81%. During that same period, the number of people receiving psychotherapy for depression dropped by 20%. What drove these 2 trends? First, it's likely that antidepressant medication provided some individuals with enough relief that psychotherapy no longer felt necessary. Second, it's also true that insurance companies are far more willing to pay for pills than for sometimes costly talk therapy. To these explanations, I'll also add a third possibility. The proliferation of safe and effective medications to treat depression, And also,
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.